Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Full Pelt Music Podcast. Shortly, we'll be joined by Chubby and the gang, who recently released their new album, And Then There Was. But before then, the usual reminders from myself. If you would, please do follow Full Pelt on social media. We're on Facebook at Full Pelt and on Twitter and Instagram at Full Pelt Music. And again, if you would, please do hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, wherever you're watching or listening. Welcome to Charlie Manning, aka Chubby and the Gang, to the Full Pelt Music Podcast. Absolutely delighted to have you on today. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm gonna
Yeah,
let you Monday off, so it's good.
always good, always good. And obviously a good time to be talking to yourself, obviously, Charlie, because Chubby and the Gang, you just put out your third album, and then there was, which we're going to get into in just a moment. But before we do, in researching for the obviously interview today. I noticed on your social something that really piqued my interest as a massive wrestling fan. It appears that you made an appearance at
Yeah.
All In, a major pay-per-view for AEW at Wembley Stadium,
Yeah.
which I was at. But
Well, yeah,
I didn't have as good a perspective as yourself. I believe you were part of the entrance for House of Black.
yeah. No, I mean, yeah, that sort of come out of nowhere, really. So a good friend of mine, Dan, sings in King Nine, and he um works alongside Brody King, and I'm not. I'll preface this with saying that I'm not a wrestling guy in any way. Like I knew like. I actually just started watching that Vince McMahon documentary, but I know there's a whole different kettle of fish. But
Yeah.
uh, I kn like I probably watched a bit of wrestling when I was a kid, but like not nothing really. And then they asked me and a bunch of the guys from like Higher Power and a few other people in a few different bands and stuff to like be part of the walkout thing. And I must say, like, it's fucking quality. It's good when you're there. It's like when the crowd just goes like that is fucking wild. And like these guys, like I saw, can't remember what his name is, but like one of them did a backflip off a fucking off the side of the walk-in thing into the table.
Yeah,
And things
Darby
like
Allin, I
that.
think maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
things like that. I'm just like, fuck me. That is, I
Yeah.
mean, but hats off.
Yeah, absolutely. Hats off. But yeah, I mean, I take it sounds like you had a great experience of it.
It's quality, man. I really enjoyed it. I'm probably gonna try and go again, I think.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Even though I sort of grew up watching it, I'd never really been to many shows, to be honest. That was one of well, probably the biggest show I've been to, and yeah, such a great time. So
Yeah, it's fucking
yeah.
wicked. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then obviously, nice little segue. What else is wicked is obviously your album that's just come out. So it came out on Friday as we talk on the Monday today. So
Yeah.
you've had a few days with it out in the public sort of aura, as it were. Obviously a unique album for you in the sense of obviously post the first two albums. This one, obviously, a bit of a change in the lineup, and you personally have been the sole creative entity for this album, unlike the previous one. So, I mean, first question from me is just how was that process for you this time around?
Well, with the previous records, I wrote everything anyway, but there was just the first one was like very much in my bedroom, and then the second one we was like doing it. I was writing it at home and bringing it to band practices, and then this one was more of a grind in the sense that like it was just me, and it was like you know much more of like a isolated like recording experience. So me and Jonah were like demoing a lot of the stuff in a so we did that for a couple of weeks, and then we did that at Fuzzbro Studios down here. So we had, but that was like a year and a half ago that we did that. So we were sort of sitting on the demos for a long time and sort of deliberating about, whether I wanted to do it under this or that or who's going to do it or all this shit. So it took a long time. Like most of the time was spent figuring stuff out rather than necessarily the music. You know what I'm saying? Because like like I said, the previous records, like I sort of tend to like lock myself in my room and write away, like just sort of go for the writing thing type thing. So that was the same on all three of them. Just this one, getting it recorded was a little more tricky because it was just us two. And then James Atkinson, who he runs Station House Studios up in Leeds. He was like definitely a massive input, had massive help, very talented guy. Couldn't recommend either of them higher enough. Could recommend, couldn't, no, couldn't recommend high enough. That's right one. And then yeah, so like having them two around was like made it easier, but there was more challenges in terms of like, you know, can't fucking do everything at once type thing. So there was that basically. But
Yeah.
in terms of the writing process, it was sort of like the same, but I just had a bit of, I was just in a different place, really, Sort of felt like
Yeah.
I might have had a little bit of a point to prove, if you know what I mean. So I just sort of, yeah, don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I get having a point to prove of it. Absolutely. And yeah, with that as well, does there come an added pressure when you are, doing everything yourself, as you say, and obviously that pressure could be coming from yourself, could be coming from others, but obviously different sort of circumstances this time around. Did you feel any extra pressure on you?
I'm always quite hard on myself, anyway. Um, and if other people, uh, put pressure on me, I, um, I sort of like tend to go the other way and be a bit more like, oh, I'll show you, or fuck, that kind of thing. But I'm my own worst enemy with that kind of shit. You know what I'm saying? I'm not very good at. I like lament over my own over like being like should have played that different then, fuck, kind of thing. You know what I mean? I'm more
Yeah.
like that than I am like if someone was like, "Oh, I don't like this," I would be like, "Couldn't give a shit, pal." You know what I mean? Basically,
Yeah.
well, big
Yeah, I think that's a great attitude personally because obviously you are making this music, yeah, yes, for other people to consume, but you're making it for yourself, to get this sort of creativity out of yourself. So it shouldn't to some extent matter what other people think. It should, you are the number one customer, as it were, to your own music. So
Yeah, I mean, as long as you're, I feel like people aren't stupid and they pick up on like honesty and like they pick up on like everything. I mean, experiences, as in like to some degree, are individual, but for the most part, like they're kind of universal. Like if you boil them down, heartbreak, fucking, camaraderie, loneliness, happiness, da da da. You can sort of put them under that. And I think if you write a song that can get someone, like, I don't say relate to because it's such a cheesy term, but like someone being like, yeah, I've been there, I've had my heart broken or whatever, like then you're sort of winning because if you can speak to, as many, what I'm trying to get at?
yeah, no, I absolutely do. I mean, relatability, as you say, it can be quite cheesy, I guess, but that's what I love about music is because obviously, I talk to so many different artists on here that have had so many different motivations and personal stories for why they've written their songs. But of course, as soon as that date comes and those songs are released into the public domain, they become everyone's songs, and everyone's going to apply their own meanings to what the songs are because they then become personal to them, and songs just grow and live a life outside of what obviously you created them for, which is a
Yeah,
beautiful thing.
what privilege that if someone, like, even if someone relates to it in a way that like, even if someone relates to it in a way that's like not how the lyrics are intended, I mean, it's still a massive privilege that someone's like got a, got anything out of it, really. I mean, even
Yeah.
if it fucking drives them to be like, this is so shit, fuck. Even that's not like, well, at least I fucking made them feel something.
Yeah, exactly. No, great point. And yeah, I mean, interesting talking to you around this album. And I picked up on a word you used for the process for this album. You picked up on the word isolated or isolation, in that
Yeah.
you were doing it in isolation. But that to me is quite interesting to hear because, of course, for listeners that will be aware and have followed, obviously, Chubby and the Gang, the first two albums are typical pandemic era albums where that's where we associate the word isolation really. It was back, musicians having to write in isolation back then, but it's actually kind of come full circle, or whatever phrase I want to apply to it, for yourself with this. Was it, again, a unique or different experience compared to writing and recording in the pandemic?
Well, pandemic is a funny one because the isolation in pandemic was like was forced, like upon people. I don't mean that in like I mean in the sense of like the situation to
Yeah,
ask it. So like people had to be isolated. There had to be. But I feel like there's a difference between that and being like feeling isolated when no one else when you look out, no one else is. That's a whole different feeling. Like we're all in the same boat during pandemic. But when you're like at home, you're like, I feel quite lonely or whatever, then that's a whole different thing, isn't it? Because you're even lonely within your own loneliness type thing. So like that's sort of where I was coming from because the pandemic was more just like confusing for me than it was anything. And I was just like, why am I what? My body was like being like, why can't you're not at work anymore? Where's the type shit?
yeah.
Um, but that's different from being like, shit, where do I go now? Kind of thing. Um, sorry, I can't remember the question. Was that the question? Was that the
Yeah,
answer?
no, I think you've answered it quite well there, Charlie. You have. Yeah, some interesting comparisons, obviously, there with what we all went through, and obviously, the manner in which this album has come together, and obviously, all together tells the sort of journey that you've been on, really. And with that, obviously, like you said, these songs were probably recorded about 18 months ago, something like that. Musicians, a lot of the public that consume this music don't realize how long a musician normally has to sit on songs after they've been written before they come out. And then obviously there is that moment where the button is pushed and it's out in the public domain. And for you, that was 3 days ago as we speak. And obviously reaction, I always say, is quite instantaneous these days. Gone are the days of waiting for magazine reviews or talking to people at shows. Obviously social media has changed the way we obviously can interact with everyone. So 3 days in, after all the efforts that have gone into this album, how have you found the reaction from fans?
I mean, I went to a gig on Saturday and people were coming up to me and being like, "Wow, I really like it." But in terms of like the internet and stuff, or like uh, fucking whatever, I try to like keep myself. I don't tend to necessarily read that much because I just don't see the point in hearing someone tell me about something that I made. Like, I feel a little bit like. I'd sort of rather read the review of another record, to be honest with you, and be like, but like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I've never really been one to like, um, I don't really like criticism is something that I'm just sort of like, meh.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry if that's a boring answer, but
No, it's not because
it's like, I think like, like, I mean, I think right currently I'm still decompressing as
hmm.
well. So like, because I get a little bit like shaky before it comes out, being like, oh, there's all this like pressure, and then you sort of like pop the zit, and then you're like, oh, there we are. You know what I mean?
No, I do, and it feeds back into what you were saying earlier around, again, you've made this for yourself. If other people don't like it, you don't care about that. You care that you've
Oh
made this
shit.
thing that you obviously appreciate yourself, which is again the main thing. So it is, yeah. Now it's always interesting to see, obviously, like the build up. I get to talk to a lot of artists in the build up, or obviously just after albums have come out, and like you say, you were feeling a bit twitchy in advance. It's always interesting to see because again, music. You used the word privileged earlier, and obviously musicians is. You know, on the face of it, quite a privileged position. I mean, obviously that doesn't take into account the hard work, blood, sweat, and tears, and obviously struggles with the modern industry and that go behind that. But um, yeah, I think it's always nice for listeners to see that sort of personal side of how musicians feel around their release.
Yeah, I definitely get a little bit touchy around it, and then once it's out, and I'm feel a bit better. You know what I mean? But leading up to it, I'm sort of the recording process for me is quite stressful because like like a gig and shit, you can go to a gig and it'd be crap, and then you come away and you see them again and they're amazing, and then bands have off days or whatever, but recording, it's down there, it's there, you can't. tough shit, mate. So I'm wax now. You know what I mean? So it's like
Absolutely.
I get a little bit tetchy, like in recording at the very start and at the very end. So like day one and two, but and the last day, I'm a little bit like because if you fuck it up on the first day and you lay the foundation wrong for the song, and then you get to the end of it and you're like, right, let's start adding this bit, and you're like, oh, we haven't put that bit in it. Oh fuck. Then you're fucked, you know. So yeah, that's when I'm at my most nervous. Like once it's mastered, I get a bit more relaxed, and then once it's out, I'm even more just like, it's here now. So, you know,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely can
I
understand
almost want to
that.
start writing a new one, to be honest with you, when it happens. But I just think I need a fucking holiday to.
Yeah, I think you've earned it. You've definitely earned it. And we'll get into a kind of holiday you've got coming up, aka the tour, in a
Yeah,
moment. But before then, there's two songs that I want to just delve into quickly. The first of which is the Bonnie Banks, because that was the first song that kind of emerged from the album into the public domain, and I'm always intrigued. With any band and any release, what stands out about the song that's the first song to come out? Because it's normally a bit of a statement. And again, obviously, with
yeah.
the sort of change in tact with the background of this album, probably even more so this time around. So, what about Bonnie Banks made it the song for you to put out there first?
So it's funny you asked that actually because we had that was probably the biggest discussion we had so far around the record because basically I sat at the table with Ricky Flatspot and like a bunch of other people, and I sat at a metaphorical table. Probably it was on Zoom or something, but we talked like, and I was like, look, there's what I think is the best song on the record. There's what my favorite song is, and there's a song that I think represents the record best. And they're three different kettles of fish, and like, and because everyone there was like Cocaine Sunday's the best song on the record. And it was and I personally think that as well. But you can't lead with it. You couldn't imagine, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
So then it was like, right, so that's taken that one down out of the three. And then I was like, well, it's my favorite one. I was like, To Be Young is probably my favorite, like the one that I think is the one that I think is the best song like on the record, but again, don't want to lead to that. And then so we were like Bonnie Banks, I think, represents the record the best and is the best out of those that does. If that makes any sense. So
that's
so we went with that one really because I didn't want to like fucking I thought honestly if I started off the fucking record started off the singles rollout with Cocaine Sunday, I genuinely think people would have been like he's lost his mind. So so we were like yeah we'll we'll put that in the back pocket for now and then we'll come out of it later really.
yeah, no, really fascinating, Charlie. Always like a question I like to ask because there is a lot of thought, a lot of methodology that goes behind picking these songs, and often it comes down to what is your gut feeling and what's going to be that best representation of the whole work, as you say. And I think you made the best choice. I think that's it. That was a
Yeah,
great song to lead on, personally.
I'm glad he did that one because like again I mean my initial reaction was like we said everyone there was like well look we think Cocaine Sunday is like the best on the record and so we was just like right well um but we can't lead a bit because it's like a weird, just it's like a slow ballad type thing. But I was like, well, fuck them. Like, why not? Like, you know what I mean? Let people think that, and then we'll hit him with the Bonnie Banks afterwards, and it will, change it up. But there is like a thought process that goes into it, and like it's much more like to me, the record's getting released anyway. No matter what comes out, it's coming out. So you know. I I don't I don't tend to get bogged down in that kind of stuff too much, but like a lot of people do. And I do know it's important. So I sort of listen to that's where it's like listening to Ricky from Flatspot and Shay and all them boys. That's where that kind of comes. That's where I like look to them for their expertise. Like, do you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
mm.
Yeah, their wisdom. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
You know, because it's like I don't want to. The last thing I'd want to do is try and become some sort of like, no, this is my. And I demand Cocaine Sunday comes out first. It's like fuck off, like, you know. So I think yeah, they
yeah.
they knew what to do, and they done good. So
They did, and Cocaine Sunday is out there for the world to enjoy now, and it is such a unique and just magnificent song. It really, really is. Like again, one of my favorites from the album for sure.
thank you, man.
So yeah, I normally do a lot of plugging in these podcasts, and I haven't mentioned it yet, but obviously, listeners, everything we're talking about, there'll be links in the bio of this podcast. So make sure you do, if you haven't already, obviously go and check this album out. I'd be surprised if you haven't already, but just in case, I'll give you that push. And another great sort of lead into the album was the song To Be Young, which you just mentioned. And that's the other song that I want to dive into. But actually, I want to just bring up the music video because regular listeners to this podcast will know that I just love music videos, always talk about them. We've created Full Pelt TV now to push music videos. I grew up with them as a kid, obviously before school, after school, watching Krang and Scars and everything. So, I just love the connection it helps to build with artists, and I always like to put the spotlight on one. And To Be Young, the music video obviously is different, which is I think always great to set it apart rather than just here's a band playing in a warehouse,
Yeah,
or like
yeah.
whatever it is. So obviously for the video, who come up with the concept and how did you go about putting that in practice?
Well, I mean, like we work with a good friend of ours, Nick. He's like fantastic. It's fantastic what he does, and but we're working on a tight budget. And I always wanted to do a green screen one. And like I remember, like I was like, is it Iron Man, the Black Sabbath music video in front of the green screen? I think it is. But I was like, I'd love to do some shit like this, but I'd love to do it in a sort of chubby style where it like is weird, like a bit more weirder, like, and and we was just like, well, fuck it, let's just fucking hang a green screen, just fucking go for it. And so we did, and like Nick came up with some great like, he came up with the concept of like walk around the house and stuff. I was like just really into the idea of having a green screen. I really thought that was a cool, and I wanted it to be like, I know the bit where I'm on the toilet, you can see the chair, the actual chair that I'm sitting on and stuff like that. I wanted that kind of stuff. Have you ever seen that music video for I can't remember who did it, but it's like United States of whatever.
Oh, Liam
That
Lynch.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then he's just sort of in this like green screen thing. I remember seeing that and being like, that's cool. So I like fucking that's what did that. I thought it was funny. But like with Chubby the Gang's all about just like having a good time, having fun and shit, you know. So we don't want to get too bogged down in like, and then I'll act like this, and then the next scene I'm doing this, or whatever. It's just sort of let's have a good time, see what's up.
Yeah. Absolutely, and like you said, that's really for me. Like since I, first discovered you, maybe it was the Download Pilot Festival or somewhere like that.
Yeah,
Obviously,
yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah, like fun is the key word for Chubby and the Gang, isn't it? It is what it's all
Yeah,
about.
there's so I mean at the time like we were like less so when we started, but definitely more so like as it was started picking up. There was this like sort of like post-punk thing that's been and it's still going on, and like I'm not gonna knock entire genres of music because if you want to listen to something, go do your thing. But it was fucking miserable, man. Like everyone was fucking miserable. I was like, Jesus Christ, I'm fucking stuck in lockdown, and you're just listening to like these fucking art students cry about all this shit. So I was just like, right, well, fuck this then. I'm gonna do something funny because I'm bored of sitting around moping. So that was kind of what the point of it, really. I'm not really a very demure person, so I just thought like, I don't know.
No, there needs to be like yeah. Again, the great thing with music is there's so much of it, so many different types of it, so many different genres. Depends on what mood you're in, what you want to listen to. And I
Mm.
think there definitely was a hole there for a band like Chubby and the Gang to come along
Yeah.
and give us just a little bit of cheeky fun. It is
Yeah.
yeah
It's like,
needed to be done.
you can go to like it's just like it does not everything has to be like a sort of like a mad like metaphorical thing. It can just be like a pint of Guinness on a Saturday. It doesn't have to be like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely, I do. And Yeah, I certainly appreciate it, and it was in the review I wrote for the album. It was meant to be a compliment. Hopefully, it's going to be taken as a compliment. But I said in writing the album, you weren't writing it in order to win the Mercury Prize.
No,
You
right.
were right. You were writing it and putting it out there to obviously just have fun, represent yourself, and do what you do best. And for that, it works perfectly and is a great album.
I also think that like on like music awards and music, accolades or whatever you want to fucking call them, like all my favorite records never came fucking close to getting one at the time. Even the biggest shit, like no one was fucking being like, hey, like do you know what I'm getting at? And then like
Absolutely.
later on, people were going like, wow. And I'm sure like you wouldn't be able to fucking name whoever won in whatever thing in 1975 because it's determined by some fucking panel of judges somewhere, as opposed to like what are actually people listening to or doing this or doing that is like different. And I almost feel like I'd like to. I almost feel like I'd like to be the antithesis of that sort of like winning the fucking music award because I just think like it's a bit of fucking metal like.
Yeah.
That that's me never winning an award again now, or ever winning an award. 'Cause I've not won one yet, so
uh, I'd love if you somehow, if this album
yeah,
did pull out, suddenly got a nomination for the
yeah,
Mercury
got a
Prize. I'd
Mercury
like to take
award.
some credit for that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll be like, oh, that interview, yeah, yeah.
Absolutely, and no, like I said again in the review, it's are fans are fans of the band gonna love this? Are they gonna dance along to it at shows? Is it gonna go down really well at your shows? That's what it's all about. It absolutely is,
That's
and
the
that's why
thing
it's a
as
great
well.
record.
That's the thing as well. It's like very narcissistic of musicians to take offense to people not liking their music, because at the end of the day, it's like, that no one fucking owes you anything. It's like if someone doesn't like it. Fucking hell. I don't like coriander. I'm not gonna fucking, you know what I mean? It's bang on about it. It's like it just is what it is. Like, and people have tastes, so like, and or don't, or maybe they do, but not towards you. So like, you shouldn't be. I don't understand why it's the musicians get like offended that they've not picked up a fucking thing or they've not had a mention in here or people being like they were robbed of the award. It's like it's not the reason, dude. Like fucking you should just be
Yeah,
happy you've got one out. I don't know. Do you know what I mean? It's fucking
yeah.
better than fucking, having a day job, that's for fucking sure. Well, I do have a day job, but.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Me too. And yeah, I mean just obviously yeah, music is just such a wonderful thing that gives everyone that release
Yeah,
from their day jobs and from everything. And I mean if everyone was exactly the same, life would be boring, wouldn't it? We all
fucking
need to like
crap.
different
Yeah.
things. So
Be
yeah,
crap. Yeah.
absolutely. Obviously that's the record, and we just touched on obviously the live side of things. So again, nice little segue going. You've got a UK and EU tour. Actually, the EU's first in November. UK, which is London, Manchester, and Glasgow, coming up early December. Obviously, fans, I encourage you, having seen the band, like I said, the Download Pilot, and I think 2000 Trees since, and maybe another show somewhere. Definitely enjoyed it. So encourage listeners, get down there, enjoy these songs live. It's what they're all about.
Thank you.
And obviously, for yourself, getting to go out to Europe, play these shows, plus obviously the ones in this country. How excited are you to be able to get out and do that?
Yeah, man. I love gigging. I love going and playing shows. I love like to me like even just like the set itself is like good. I enjoy doing that, but it's like the whole just like being about and shit and like having I like I've never really been a festival person in general. I never grew up going to festivals, never went to Reading or Leeds or anything like that, or I was sort of like went to like pubs to like punk back rooms type thing. So I actually really enjoy like going to a festival and being like, oh wow, this is what this is like kind of thing. It's all very new to me, you know what I mean? So I'm enjoying that like a lot. I like touring because it's fun. No other way to put it. Like, do you know what I mean?
That's the
So
key word, isn't it?
yeah, I
Absolutely.
mean, it's like that's it. Like I enjoy it. I'm excited to get back out, and see the. I mean, not be just sitting about. Basically.
Yeah.
Sitting about in a van instead of sitting about in a fucking wherever, you know.
No, absolutely. It is magical, despite all the challenges to get out and play shows, which always come up. Yeah, it's what it's all about for me is the live side of things. And again, encourage listeners to jump along and come along to those. And obviously, best way for listeners to stay up to date, I always give out the social handles. Yours are really easy because it's the band's name. It's Chubby and the Gang on Facebook and Instagram. It will flash up on the screen as I say them. Obviously, link in the bio as well. Listeners, go follow Chubby if you don't already do so, because that's how the best to stay up to date with everything coming out from Chubby in the future. It's been amazing talking through this great record that, again, listeners, again, plug from me, definitely need to go and check out. Before we close out the podcast, though, we always have the one standard segment in the podcast just to finish this off. And it's something that came up early doors with this podcast, talking about a lot of issues in the music industry. So I thought, rather than talking about them throughout the whole podcast, we'll pigeonhole them in right at the end. So it's called Magic Wand, Charlie. And I'm going to give you, obviously, sadly, an imaginary magic wand. And I'm going to ask you, with that magic wand, you can change one thing about the music industry, but one thing only, which is where it gets quite tough. So with yours, what would you like to change?
If it was up to me, I'd get rid of this culture of the starving artist thing. I'd fucking put that straight in the bin because I think that um everyone should be allowed to create music or art or whatever the fuck you want to do. And I think that this concept of like you having to starve for a long time to get anywhere, it reserves the arts for the people who are part of the who have enough money where they don't need to work. So essentially you're just sort of like, you know, if you need to have a job or you got kids to look after or whatever, you can't do music then because you can't be a starving artist if you've got dependables or fucking you need to, whatever. So it reserves it for like upper classes. So if it was up to me, I'd get rid of that.
Yeah, which I think is a great answer. Really, really is. And I
Either
just
that
wish
or
that
get a
wand was
big
real.
old, either that or I'd give myself a massive paycheck. No, I'm joking.
Yeah, the old age. If I had three wishes, I'd wish for three more wishes.
Yeah, yeah. I'd
Yeah,
have a
yeah.
bag of pork scratches that never ended. There you go.
Nice, nice. No, absolutely amazing getting to talk to you at this exciting time for you, Charlie. And obviously, wish you all the success with everything coming up. Listeners, my final message, as always, is as I said, follow Charlie on social media, check out the album, check out the video, and head to a show if you can. But I always like to give the final message over to the guests. So, Charlie, what would be your final message for the listeners today?
Listen to as much music as you can. Wider the net, bigger the catch.
Yeah, absolutely endorse that final message. Thank you so much for giving me your time today, Charlie.
Oh, of course. Thanks for having me, man.
Well, thank you everyone for listening. I really do hope you enjoyed that chat there with Chubby and the gang. Do make sure you check out their new album, And Then There Was, and of course, follow the band across social media to stay up to date with everything coming from them. You can also stay up to date with Full Pelt. We're on Facebook at Full Pelt and on Twitter and Instagram at Full Pelt Music. And finally, if you would, please do hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, wherever you're watching or listening, because we'll be back very soon with another episode of the Full Pelt Music Podcast.